Welcome everybody to another edition of GoDaddy's Google Hangouts with the Aftermarket. With me as always is Joe Styler, Product Manager, and today we've got Bill Nelson from our Domain Buy Service team. He's going to tell you a little bit about that offering and what it is he does on a day-to-day basis. I'm Brian Cowan. I've been with our Aftermarket for 6 some odd years now, and I specialize in our high-value domains. Today we're going to be covering how to acquire a domain name that may not be listed in an aftermarket, what tools are at your disposal to find who to contact, and some negotiating tactics. In addition to that, we're going to touch on backorders a little bit again as an option for that, and then lastly the domain buy service. Joe, did you want to start us off with a little bit about yourself? Or
yeah, let me tell you a little bit about myself, and then we can introduce Bill. I've been with GoDaddy for about 9 years. My name is Joe Styler, and I've been in the aftermarket for a large majority of that time. I really enjoy it, and I like to help people to be able to get their names that they want either sold or to be able to purchase a name for their business and really take their business to the next level or get something started that they have a great idea for. So today, the main thing we're going to talk about is you have a name that you picked out for your business or something that you want to start, and somebody else owns the name. What's the process of getting that name? How can you go about it? You're really excited about launching your business or you want to take it to that next level? How can you get that name that's already taken? We want to try and help you out the best we can, so feel free to ask any questions that you have. Bill?
And my name is Bill Nelson. I've been with GoDaddy since 2009, and in the aftermarket, the domain buy service, since about 5 years. Just coming up on my 5th year anniversary here, and it's just loving, talking to people about trying to acquire names, and it's fun talking to sellers, about selling their names and just negotiating. It's just a lot of fun. Really enjoy it.
All right. Get things going. I think Joe had a scenario that we were going to play through as far as what tools we'd use if we were a user who had a brilliant idea for a domain name and wanted to get things going. The domain showed up as already registered when they went to register it at GoDaddy.com or their registrar of choice, and where they'd go from there. So you want to walk us through that?
Yeah,
Joe?
sure. My registrar of choice, of course, would be GoDaddy. So I go to GoDaddy.com and I put in the name I want to buy for my business. So let's say I'm going to start a bakery, and I want to buy the name breadexpert.com. I'm going to specialize in bread, and I love to bake bread, and I want to start selling that. And I want to be able to ship it to people all over the country, right? So I go to GoDaddy, I'm real excited, and I say, man, I want to call my bakery Bread Expert. So I try and register breadexpert.com, and it says, hey, this name's already taken. It's going to suggest other names to me. I think the team that suggests other names for us is doing a great job, so there's going to be some other alternatives there that are going to be really close to what I asked for or other names I might be interested in. But when you come up with an idea or an invention or something that you really want to launch, a lot of times you're dead set on that exact idea. So I really want to get Bread Expert, right? And it says name's already taken. So
in this case, it's for sales.
Oh, it is.
Premium.
So must be using that to test. So you list it on the domain purchase path. You go to find it to buy it, and it says, hey, this is taken. Here are some other names you might want to buy. Well, I really don't want the .org or the .guru. I wanted to get that .com. That's what I was interested in. So how do I find who owns the name and what should I do? One of the simple tools the simplest place to start is to actually type the name in the web browser and see what happens. So if somebody's got a website up on it, chances are they might have some contact information on it that you could talk to them and see if maybe they're interested in selling the name, or you might be able to find out some other things about the owner or maybe what they might be offering for sale. It might be similar to what you have or something that you might be able to use as a negotiation tactic when you approach them so that you can try and get that name for yourself. If you get to the website and it looks like what Brian just showed you, where it's just parked and it doesn't have a lot of information, so there's no contact information that you can see, then the next thing that I would suggest you do is go to do a who is lookup. Now, a who is lookup is like a phone book. So we used to have everything listed in a phone book where you get delivered to your house, and it would tell you, you'd look up the person's last name and it would tell you their phone number and address. On domain names, we have a similar tool, and it's called the who is. And you can use various who is lookups, but on GoDaddy, We have one that's on the bottom of our page. You can also type in who.godaddy.com. It'll bring you to our lookup. You type in the name that you want to find, and it will give the results. Now, sometimes the names have all the contact information that you need to be able to get in touch with the person who owns the name, like this one. This is pretty straightforward. It says my name, it says my address, it has my phone number you can contact me at, and it has an email address that you can contact me at. So now I'm off to to the races. I know who owns the name, and I have a good place to start to be able to contact them. Sometimes it'll just say domain admin, or it'll be really generic, or you might call the phone number, it doesn't work. You try to look at the name, and it has something called privacy, which various companies offer, which gives you a shield. It's kind of like being unregistered in the phone book. You don't want everybody in the world to know where you live or what your phone number is. So you buy a privacy service that when you go to the Who Is, it masks who owns the name, and it just shows another company's name there instead. Now, if that's the case, there's other tools that you can use to try and find the owner. If we go to another Who Is lookup called Domain Tools, which is one that I use a lot, it's domaintools.com. If you have a account with them that you can pay for different levels, you can get more and more information about the people who own the name. So if you were to type in breadexpert.com on Domain Tools, you'd be able to see the same information that we just pulled up on GoDaddy since it's public, but if you needed to know some more information, this gives you a little bit more robust view of what's going on the back end. So you can see who owns the other names. So it looks like .net, .org, .info, they're all available, right? And that's important to know when you're going to go offer somebody money to buy their name. You want to know how popular their name is, right? If all the other extensions are taken, then it's a pretty popular name. It's going to be more valuable. If somebody can just go buy the .net or .org, it's probably less popular, and it's going to tend to be a little bit less valuable. The other thing that you can see from here, if you look down, there's a lot of information on this page, but you can see the Who Is history, and you can see that this name's been registered since 2007, and you can see there's 50 records of it. So you can also see how many changes happened. You can see where the registrars were. You can see a lot of information. So if you were to click on the Who Is history, you can scroll down, and you can see by clicking on another date a snapshot of what the Who Is was then. So it used to be owned by a guy named John, and this was his information. But oftentimes, if somebody has privacy on the name, if they didn't purchase privacy at the same time that they bought the name initially, there's a good chance that a Who Is archive, like Domain Tools, would have taken a snapshot of who the owner was before they added privacy, and you can use this to look back and find out who's the real owner of the name. Oftentimes, you can use the other information they have, how many times did it change, did the registrar change, to really narrow down, is this the same person or not who used to have the name. And it usually gives you a pretty good guess of, okay, this seems like the guy who used to own the name, or who does own the name before he put privacy on. And now I have his address and his phone number, and I can give him a call and try and negotiate a sale for the name. So using a more in-depth paid version of a Who Is lookup is going to give you a lot more resources for you to be able to find out who really owns this name, and what can you do to contact them. There's another way that you can try and find out who owns the name. If you're looking on the Who Is and you go to Domain Tools and they've always had privacy and you can't find really anything when you go to the website, there's a tool that's a free tool. It's called archive.org, and what that does is it takes screenshots of websites, pretty much any website that exists, and it'll give you various screenshots of it. So if you were to go to look up GoDaddy.com, for example, you could see what our website looked like at different points over the past 15 or so years. And it'll bring up all the changes. You can pick a different year, and you can take a look at it. Any of the blue buttons will bring up what the site looked like, and oftentimes when you look at archive, you can find what used to be on the site, and it may have contact information. So you might see a site that no longer has contact information, doesn't show ownership, information for you to be able to try and buy the name, but you can look at the archive site and see hey, maybe a year ago or 3 years ago it had some information on there that you'll be able to find useful, to be able to find who owns the name and contact them. It's also really useful to see what was the site used for. That's something important you want to consider. If I want to start a bakery and I want to sell bread on breadexpert.com, if I go back and I see that people were trying to sell Viagra on this, and it might be blocked from Google, from the search results, or it might be blocked as for sending spam for people to try and buy fake Viagra, then that's going to be a problem. So using archive is really going to give you a lot more full picture of what the name's value is and what it might have been used for, and also find a potential way to contact the customer if the other avenues that you tried really aren't getting you anywhere.
I was just tied up in the fact that Danica looks the same in 2006 as she does today. That's impressive. She's aged very gracefully.
So the last thing I would say is, you looked on the Who Is, so you tried the phone book option. You looked on the website and you tried to find it on the website to see if there was any contact information. You looked at what the website used to look like. There's also ways to see if the name might be for sale at a certain venue. So if you were to go to auctions.godaddy.com, we have millions of names for sale. If you go to afternick.com, they have millions of names for sale at an aftermarket. So these are people that want to list their names for sale, and that's really a positive sign because at least the person wants to sell the name, right?
That a time.
So I just want to briefly cover that you should check the aftermarket options. There's other places like Cedo, SEDO.com, and there's places like Domain Name Sales, and they're going to have different inventory. So just because you might not see a name for sale at one place doesn't mean that it's not for sale at a different marketplace. There's a lot of crossover, but it's not one-for-one correlation. Some of the names are going to be in one place and not in another. So it's good to take a look at that. It's going to give you two things. If you can't find it anywhere, it's probably not for sale, especially if you went to the website and it doesn't announce that it's for sale. And if you don't see it in any aftermarket venues, then okay, well, this name's probably not for sale. So it's going to be a different negotiation tactic that you're going to take to try and acquire the name. But if it is for sale, you're going to see, okay, great, this name's for sale, and what does the guy want to sell it for? Who owns it? And that's also really good information for you to have before you reach out and try and contact them, or reach out to one of these venues and say, hey, I see this is for sale for $1,800. Is there any way you could do $1,600? So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Brian, who's going to give you a little bit more information on, now that you know how to contact the person, what should you offer them? How much money is a name worth, and what should you do for your initial offer to them?
Thanks, Joe. So we'll take a step back and we'll step away from the actual aftermarket transactions, and we'll look at this as you've got a brand new business idea, you've got something you want to hit off the ground, the domain was taken, you can't see it for sale anywhere, you want to reach out to the current registrant and you want to acquire that domain, and where do you begin? Valuation is a tricky thing. There's a lot of tools out there that you can use. My favorite currently is Domain Index, and I think that an appraisal tool is a fine place to start, but I don't want you to get caught up in the value that's given to you by a computer. That's incomplete information. That's giving you, in this particular case, it's giving you what it's for sale for, but it'll also give you a valuation. It tells us here that Joe has that bread expert overpriced because it's come back with a negated value. So an algorithm is going to run different metrics and see how searchable the name is. It's going to run the age. It's going to run the extension. There's a ton of different variations for this stuff. It'll also look one of the reasons I like this one is it runs comparable sales. So there's other third-party places that you can go to find comparable sales, such as domain prices or domain pric.es or name bio. DN Journal for year-to-date sales, that sort of thing. But again, I think that the idea of what the name is worth to a computer or to comparable sales is still incomplete information. The biggest piece of this really comes down to the fact that there's another human on the other side of this, and really sort of you have to gauge their interest. So there's a couple of tricks for that. I've found that what's worked for me when I was doing the acquisition piece was I kept coming back to my experience playing poker. I feel like every time that I get into a negotiation, it's like a poker game, and what the cards are doesn't necessarily matter. Just like what the domain name is doesn't necessarily matter. It's only a factor of it. But the other piece is what you value your cards at may be something different because you don't know what's on the other side of that table. And so in order to do that, or in order to help you with that, to better complete your incomplete information, Domain Tools, which Joe alluded to earlier, also does this, but here's a free tool, webboard.com, where you can get an idea of who is on the other side of this. So let's say that you wanted Bread Expert, and you wanted to say, all right, well, who's this Joe Styler guy? What other sort of domains does he have? You can get an idea of whether or not he's got good taste in domains, or if he's just very fond of bread, if he's done this as sort of a business model, or maybe this was a hobby. So here I can see that, are all these yours? You had a piece of millionaire.com at some point? Interesting. That's
misspelling.
Oh, all right.
Yeah,
my vision's not that.
Some of these are picked up for testing.
Not that great. Gotcha. So anyhow, now I've got a better idea of what it is he does. I think he's got I think he's got pretty good taste in that. Those are all quality domain names. So where am I going to begin? And what I'd recommend that you start with is that you start with an offer. Lots of people who own domain names get people that just ask for what the price is all the time, and they're not really sure how to respond. You're starting the conversation, so try and anchor it in a way that you're establishing the parameters for it, and I think you're going to find whether or not you've got something to talk about. The other part of that is, I would say, start with something that's going to bring them to the table. $20, $30, $50. That might be a lot of money, if you're starting out with a business idea, but that may not be something that moves the meter for somebody. And if they've had a domain for 10 years, they've got more into it than registration costs, they're not going to respond to that. I used to nobody gets out of bed for less than $100, and that's true kind of generally. I would say that's kind of a rule of thumb for your average day-to-day somebody that just bought it on a whim and then wound up not doing anything with it. That's a fine place to start. But if you find that it's somebody that's got a number of domains, or that they might be a professional, you're going to have to kind of better gauge the player on the other side of that table and kind of figure out where their money meter is, where it is that they would actually care. And then you get into businesses. If you pulled the Who Is record and you find that the domain's owned by a large company, even if they're not using it, what's it going to take for that large company to actually even give this the time of day or consideration? So, if you bring $100 to GoDaddy.com, it's one of our corporate domains, or you brought it to Microsoft, chances that they're going to give that consideration, the amount of people and man hours it would take to actually disjoin that domain from whatever it's connected to and move that over to you, they're not going to take that seriously. So if you find that the domain you've got great taste in domains, if you've got something that's owned by a company like that, but with that great taste, you're going to have a budget that correlates to that.
Even on a small business, you have to consider that too. I think, I'm trying to negotiate a deal right now for a customer, and I'm approaching a small business, and the guy's had the name in use for about 14 years. Yeah, it's going to be a substantial amount of money to buy that name, even though the name itself isn't a great name. I mean, it's a good name. It's not a great name. But you have to think about, there's television advertisements that go on behind this. There's marketing campaigns that he's done besides the television. There's business cards. There's customers that have been approaching him for 12 years that find him online at the same address. If I was to start the bakery, and Bread Expert, it's not a great name, but I do like to make bread. So if I was starting a bakery and selling bread, and I had T-shirts and had a building, and I had marketing emails that I sent out to people over the years that had my web address back to it, and business cards and things like that, to switch my domain name is a huge expense, and I want to come out on top for doing it. I wouldn't do it for nothing. So that's something that you really have to consider as well. If you're going to make an offer on somebody who's got a live business, you need to think about, what did that really cost for them to get the name? Might have cost them 10 or 15 bucks to get the name, but how much do they have invested in it, and how much would it cost them to change it?
And that brings up a real good point as far as maybe it's not a household business name that you know, but taking that research to the next level. Like we looked at the WebBore stuff and saw the results of the domains you had. Joe Styler's kind of a poor example because we know what he does for a living. But if it was a different party, maybe doing a little bit more research and diving in a little deeper, seeing what you can find out about figure out, get a better gauge for what their lifestyle is, what their appetite would be, what the business is. How big of an asset would that be to their business, and then figure out if it's appropriate to pursue it or not. The flip side of that is that also understand that when you do that, a lot of sellers are going to do the same thing about you. They're going to figure out, all right, well, who is this that's contacting me? They'll want to dig a little bit deeper, and so I'm looking at one of the buyers that I just worked for recently. If you've just landed a multi-million-dollar investor from a VC, you may not want to approach them directly. You may want to bring in a third party, or you may not want to say, hey, I'm with so-and-so, because if they wind up Googling you and then they find out, oh, these people just landed millions of dollars, then the price goes up for you. So on that note, I think we're going to turn it over to Bill, talk a little bit about DBS, because that would be one such one such service.
All right, so domain buy service is GoDaddy's offering where our service is to help you acquire the name to start your business. Okay, and our goal, okay, is to succeed. We want to acquire that domain for you, and we have a team of experts who are ready to do that for you. Okay, so domain acquisition it's an unusual business. Okay, it's not something that people do every day. People are very unfamiliar with how the processes work. There's a lot of uncertainty with regards to what Joe and both Brian have alluded to, finding out who the domain owners are, how to evaluate them. We take a lot of the ease out of that. We'll help you and guide you through that process. We handle the communications, the negotiations, processing sales, and domain transfer. Okay, and we'll help you through that process. And one of the things that GoDaddy brings to the party is name recognition. Okay, we're a powerful brand in the market. Okay, we're a registrar. We've got more than 50 million domains, under registration, under management. Okay, so that opens a lot of doors for us. Not only with our relationship with major players with having domain name portfolios, but it also opens doors for us with the small investor. Because when we call up and say, I'm Bill Nelson with the domain buy service with GoDaddy, okay, sometimes they'll stop and listen. So it opens doors and gets us in front of the right people. Okay, at least they're listening to our offers. Okay, one of the other things that this service provides is it's anonymity. Okay, exactly what Brian and Joe were talking about. You want to approach someone about a domain name and you're Microsoft or Google or someone else with a lot of money. We don't want the seller knowing who you are. So we provide that anonymity. Okay, we also save you time. Okay, and also money in some cases. Because of our connections with some of these large domainers, we can probably get a better deal for you because we know we've got these relationships and we buy so many domains. Okay, so we manage the entire process for you. We handle the payment processing. Once we've got a deal done, we'll process the finances through GoDaddy for $4,900, or excuse me, anything under $5,000, GoDaddy processes, and anything over $5,000, then we process through escrow.com. Now, there is a 10% commission to GoDaddy. That is subject to change. Okay, so that's what it is currently right now. And then we manage the entire process, soup to nuts. Okay, so we want to make sure that everybody gets what they want. If we come to a deal, okay, we want to make sure that you, as the buyer, if you pay your money, you get your domain. And we want to make sure that the seller gets paid. So we'll make sure that the domain gets into your account, and then we release funds to the former domain owner. Okay, a couple of really interesting success stories we've had recently, or I personally.
Mm-hmm.
We have a client who was trying to acquire ukhealthcare.org. This was a client in the UK that owned the domain, but this client of ours had been trying for 10 years to get the name. Okay, emails didn't work. They just wouldn't respond to them. So I ended up calling him, and he called back the next day, and we were able to negotiate the sale. It took a little while, but we were able to open a dialogue. So I truly believe that the GoDaddy name meant something, and he responded. Okay. Another example was youngsmotorsports.com. They're a steel manufacturing company, or they build prefab steel buildings in Texas. But they've been trying to acquire this particular name for 5 years, and the seller wouldn't respond to them. Well, they're really excited because we just acquired the name. They actually run on the truck camping series. Okay, so it's pickup trucks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, as part of NASCAR, and they just recently announced their new website at Daytona 500 last week.
Oh, man,
so they're
cool.
super excited.
Mm-hmm.
Both those examples kind of triggered something for me that was interesting. We talked about like the algorithms, and we ran it on the standard valuations on Bread Expert.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine that if you ran the valuation on either of those domains, that it probably wouldn't come back very high. And I'm not going to press you for the sales price, but would it be safe to say that those actually sold for more than what they likely appraised for?
It could be.
You think so?
I mean, I think I can't remember. I think the domain for the .org sold for $5,000, but he was associating the name because he was in the United Kingdom. It had a completely different meaning to them. Okay, so he was thinking United Kingdom Healthcare.org.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, our client was the University of Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
It was based on that need that they, they've got the.
Yeah. And they're a big player in that market, so I think it was kind of interesting.
Huh.
Yeah. Yeah, I think really the thing that Bill touched on is the expertise. I mean, besides the fact that you're going to open doors by saying you're GoDaddy, you also have the ability to say, we deal with hundreds and hundreds of these sales every month, and I know your name's not worth $50,000. It's worth $5,000. So let's have a better conversation about that and talk about it. And the other thing that I think really helps is the amount of volume that we do. There's a lot of institutional customers who own large portfolios, or individual investors who own large portfolios of domain names and have them for sale. Those are customers that we tend to go to over and over to buy their names, and the fact that they know who we are and that we do a lot of business with them helps in our negotiation. When you want to buy a name, we're able to get you a better price and be able to expedite that sale and get in front of the person that's going to be the decision maker. So I really think that it would be fair to say that in most cases, the vast majority of them, we're going to save you money compared to doing it yourself, even if you have to pay for our service. Not to mention the time that we save. We showed you a couple tricks and tips to be able to find the owners, but there's a lot of other things that we know from doing this for a long time where we could really get in front of the right person and make sure that your offer gets presented.
I think that what Joe and Brian alluded to, I mean, knowing what to offer, and when you provide us a minimum and maximum range, that doesn't close the door for anything. Okay, it's what we're looking for is a number that we can present to the seller. Okay, that is going to engage them in a conversation about the sale of the domain. Okay, if we've got a 26-letter domain, I mean, we're not going to offer much, okay, but offering $80 on a 3-letter domain does not going to lead us to success.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to look at the quality of the name, the quality of the offer that we're making, and that's when we're most successful. When we have people who understand the valuation on the buyer side,
mm-hmm.
and then we also have reasonable sellers on the other sides, and that's when we are most successful.
Nice. Do we have anything to add before we open it up to questioning, or do we?
No, I'd like to
get to that.
Yeah, I'd like to open it up for any questions anybody has.
Colby, you got anything for us?
Yeah, I don't believe believe we touched on this one of the question Harsh had about getting many offers on his domain that he's not using anymore. Which method, since there seems to be a few in the aftermarket, would you recommend for selling a domain? Where should he start, I guess?
I'll let you start.
Yeah, there's a couple different ways to do it, but I think the best way to do it was just let us give you a feel for what we think the name's worth. If you're getting offers on the name, you probably have an idea what people are willing to pay, but there's different things that happen in the market where names might be more valuable or less valuable, and it might be a time to capitalize by selling, or you might be saying, okay, well, these names seem to be going up. Like a good example is the Chinese market for buying names has really picked up, and numeric domains are names that they're very interested in. So a 4-character number domain name, 4numbers.com, a few years ago was worth much less than it is today. So you might have gotten offers a couple of years ago, and we want to make sure that the market offer that you're getting is up to date with where the price expectations are today, and we'd be happy to help you out with that. You can email us, jstyler@godaddy.com is my email. We'll be happy to help you. But I think that's the best place to start is what are you going to price your name? Once you get past that, then you can put it out on Afternic, you can put it on GoDaddy as premium name. You're going to get in front of millions of searches a day, or if you combine both of them. And that's a great way to get your name in front of the most people. And the other thing that you can do is you can talk with us about if it's a really good name, maybe taking that and brokering it for you, or some other options. So I think it really depends on what the name is, but a great thing to start with is figure out what's the right price range that you want to sell it for. And then if you use a service like ours, it's really going to safeguard you so that you know that you're going to get your money, and the money's going to clear and be good before you move the name to somebody else, which is a big thing that you need to worry about. You want to make sure that when you're moving your name to somebody else that you really are sure that the money is going to get to you.
You touched on what I was going to add, which was, and full disclosure, Afternic is a part of the GoDaddy family, but that's generally where I steer anyone who is looking to entertain offers as opposed to outwardly selling a domain name. And the reason being, again, that the Afternic channel is going to list it with GoDaddy, but in addition to that, it's going to list to a broader registrar network. So there's a multitude of registrars, so people from all over are getting a look at that domain, and they're having it presented to them as an opportunity to buy. So that's stuff.
And then John's been a long-time customer. He said he tried to buy a domain at auction a couple weeks ago, though, and just found the process on the site was a little bit too cumbersome for him. Is there any plans to improve the process? And is there a way for him to call and have someone actually do it for him, or walk him right through it?
Yeah, it's that's my job, and I'll tell you that it's been something that has been a pain point for us for a while, and we've been doing a lot of things under the hood that haven't been very evident to be able to tee up the changes that we need to make to take the friction out of buying a name on the aftermarket. It's very cumbersome. There's too many steps, and we don't want that to happen. We want you to be able to come to the site and have as smooth a process as if you were buying a brand new name, and just check out and have the name. So any place we can take out friction, we are addressing, and you'll see some changes over the next year that are going to make things even easier for you. There's too many points now where you have to do things like purchase a membership and then be redirected from the main site to an auction site, and then get back to the main site to pay. There's a lot of different points that we want to cut out and just make it a smoother process. So you bring up a good point. It is something that we're well aware of. If you have any specific suggestions for me, jstyler@godaddy.com, email me. I'm happy to answer any questions you have about how to buy the name to maybe make it easier for you, or if you have suggestions on how we can clean it up and make the process better for everybody, I'm happy to do that.
I think that's what we have currently. Okay. Yeah, no other questions.
All right. Well, as is, feel free to reach out to us via Twitter on the @GoDaddyAuctions Twitter handle, or through the Hangout. We will check on that, follow it up, and I'll make sure that either myself or our social team will follow up with you and address anything that comes up. Thanks for taking the time, and we've got a couple more of these in the pipe, and looking forward to those. Do we have an idea of what's on deck, or?
We do. We're gonna try and get some experts in the domain space to be able to let people know what they think their names are worth and how to evaluate a name. So we're going to talk to some key players in the industry, some big names we have that have volunteered to be a part of this, and we're excited about that. And we also want to talk to some of the customers who have used domain buy service and some of the success stories that they have as a result. How did the domain buy service work for them when they were able to acquire the name? What did it do for their business, and how much of a difference did it make in their return on investment? So those are our next two things that we have planned. And if you do have any questions, like we said at the beginning, the main point of this Hangout today is to help you get a name that somebody else already owns, and it could be complex, and there's a lot of different variables. So if you're confused at all, please reach out to us because we want to help. We're going to check our questions on the Google page, and you can also email me directly, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Good stuff. Until next time, thanks.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.